This episode and every episode of the Beer Guys Radio Show is brought to you by Monger Brewing. Visit Monger at their tap room in Marietta, Georgia, or online at ironmongerbrewing.com.
Open up a tab, grab a seat, and pour a pint. It's time for the Beer Guys Radio Show.
You want free beer? Go to the brewery.
Dedicated to the art, science, and enjoyment of craft beer.
Yeah, what's wrong with the beer we got?
Now, here are your hosts, Tim Dennis and Brian Hewitt.
And welcome to the Beer Guys Radio Show. We're broadcasting from the Beer Guys Radio Studios in Marietta, Georgia. And this week we are talking with North by Northwest Brewing Company. I'm Tim Dennis, and with me as always is my good friend and co-host, Brian Hewitt.
Hey, Tim. So joining us today, we have David Manley, the head brewer of North by Northwest Brewing Company. We're going to talk about zombie dragons, experimental IPAs, the Austin beer scene, and beer trends like Norwegian farmhouse ales. David, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Absolutely. We're looking forward to it, man. Got some good topics to talk about. Looking forward to talking about those Norwegian farmhouses and the interesting yeast that they use there. And we will debate the pronunciation of that.
I think we will,
a little bit later. So, Brian, another busy week here for us. Got around, checking things out. Twitter poll. Let's start with our Twitter poll.
Let's do that.
Forgot about that. So we do our Twitter poll now. We did one on terpene beers. David, what are your thoughts on terpenes or hempy, danky beers?
So terpene beers kind of popped up about a year ago. I remember the Emperor from New Belgium was kind of one of the bigger ones out. I was bartending at the time, and they had actually created a beer that would completely destroy a tap line to make it only taste like hemp or weed. The Emperor was so strong. Every time I'd pour a beer, I would have a customer ask if somebody lit up in the bar. And so it was very strong. I kind of like the flavor, but yeah, they're a little out there. We did a 420 release of our beer, hazy IPA called Dank Sinatra, and we did a CBD infused version of it, which was along those lines. We were looking into the terpenes to see if we could use terpenes. In Texas, it's not really legal to use terpenes, but CBD is legal. So we infused a cask with watermelon CBD, and it was a hit. It sold out in 10 minutes. It was insane.
Wow.
Okay. I tried the Hemper at a beer bar in Augusta, Georgia for the first time, and it was a smaller beer bar, intimate kind of place. And when we opened it up and poured it, everyone in the bar turned their heads. The entire place turned their heads to see. Yeah. And someone on the other side of the beer said, well, somebody got a Emperor. I'm like, yep, absolutely. But on Twitter, Brian, I was a little surprised at the results here, to be honest with you, because I thought these were hot stuff right now. But according to the responses on our Twitter poll, 30% of people said they're down with the terpene beers, with the dank in their drink, Brian. And 70% no way. They said they're going to pass on that. Yeah, which really surprised me, because anytime they tap, like you said, David, when they tap, they're popular. People go through them like crazy. Here in Atlanta, we have 420 strain from Sweetwater. They've done the G13.
Sweetwater.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. G13's around here at a few bars. That one and Emperor are the two that I've seen specifically in Austin, more so than any other actual Austin brewery kind of playing around with it. I think Independence may have done also either a terpene or a CBD thing for 420 as well. But that G13 I've seen that in a lot of bars in Austin. That is very
Have you tried that one yet?
I have. It was a little bit more, I want to say, subdued than the Emperor, which I liked a little bit more. The Emperor just came off like so resiny and spicy in a way and herbal. It was just very, very intense. Where the G13 was a little bit more, still had that, but more approachable, a little bit lighter. I would say like the Emperor is the imperial version of a terpene beer, you know. That's the max you're going to get.
I think the Emperor was totally made to showcase those dank flavors, the terpenes, where the 420 strain seems like they're in there, but they still got a solid beer. They wanted you to notice the beer and just kind of add that to it.
Yeah.
And I think that I agree also with both of you guys that the G13 420 strain is a superior of the two. One's kind of a gimmicky beer. The other one's one I can drink more of and have consumed more of than the other. So.
But according to 70% of the people that responded to our poll on Twitter, they're going to pass on both of those, apparently.
I can't believe that. My mind was changed by these beers. I went going in thinking, no way, this is going to be terrible. And my mind's changed. I am on the side of the 30%, Tim.
I am also part of the 30%. Oh, well, good stuff, Brian. Yep. Well, we also went to one of our favorite beer fests in Atlanta, Old 320 Fest, that is held at one of our favorite brew pubs, Max Lager's. Max Lager's is one of the oldest brew pubs in the state of Georgia, the oldest brew pub. And always a great event there. Some really cool beers, great food, good people. A lot of the brewers show up there. So if you're wanting to go out and you're wanting to see the actual people brewing your beer, that's a great festival to go out and check it out. And I got to admit, Brian, I found some really good beers there, had some nice stouts. The Bold Monk is another brew pub that the people that own Max Lager's, John Roberts, is going to be opening soon. And they previewed some of his beers at the event. They were really nice.
Indeed.
And I enjoyed some Pilsners, man. Good Word Brewing had their Die Todd Die Pilsner.
That's right.
Which I thought was really good. And just an awesome time.
And another kind of a shout out or an homage was the Atlanta Brewing Company's double barrel aged Beer Dad or something like that.
Yes.
Or Beer Dad is what it was. I get those confused.
Good stuff.
Yes. But Tim, I think it's time that we get into the beers of the week.
Crack open a cold one. It's the Truck and Tap Beer of the Week. Woo-hoo! Craft beer and food trucks in downtown Woodstock. Truckandtap.com.
Well, Brian, as always, we've got a great selection of beers to get into this week. We have some on the way to us from North by Northwest, but thanks to delivery delays, sometimes we didn't get them in time for the show. But we'll enjoy those, David. We appreciate you sending those up, and we'll enjoy them a lot when we get them, I'm sure. But in lieu of the North by Northwest beers, we're dipping into our cellar here, our stash. We're going to get into Wild Heaven's Wild Monster. Brian, one I think you picked up at the brewery this week.
I did, yes.
We'll check that out. We are currently drinking one that is a recent release from Creature Comforts Brewing called Imperial Trop Haze. And if you know Creature Comforts, their Tropicalia is their flagship, most popular beer. This is an Imperial Hazy version of that, kind of kicked up a notch. We also, Jay Brantley, who was on the show in the past, he won our Best Georgia Homebrewer for our 2018 Best Georgia Beer Awards. He dropped us off a nice mix pack. We're going to get into some of those, including his Munich Helles. So we've got plenty to drink. We're going to make it through this. Brian, what is happening this week in the news?
What's in the news? The beer guys have the scoop.
Extra, extra, read all about it.
Time for headlines.
According to an article I read on foodandwine.com, craft beer drinkers are less adventurous now than they used to be. This based upon a recent survey by Nielsen. It says that 75% of craft beer drinkers buy up to 3 different brands a month, but the number of drinkers who buy 5 or more brands a month has declined. Nielsen summarized this saying, drinkers today are less likely to experiment across brands, at least compared to 5 years ago. That means that brand recognition and customer loyalty are becoming increasingly important in the beer industry these days. And to be honest, this trend accurately reflects my own purchasing habits. So,
what do you think's causing that, Brian?
I think a little bit of palate fatigue. There's a lot of like hyper localism. So your local place near you is the place you go hang out, and you develop a lot of loyalty because they're your neighborhood joint. So, I mean, I think that's a lot of it.
You don't have to go out hunting quite as much.
Exactly. So one of the more interesting things I read this week was a list of the 5 hottest beer trends in 2019, according to The New School, a Portland beer blog I follow. It's a fun read, especially because it confirms something I was thinking was the case. That is that Norwegian farmhouse and kveik-based beers are a trend now. And also hot trends, Japanese rice lagers, Italian-style pilsners and dry hop pilsners, brewed IPAs now increasingly with adjuncts and flavorings.
Interesting, okay.
And surprisingly still trending, rosé beers. Crazy, Tim.
Still going strong. Yeah. You know, I wasn't sure on the brewed IPAs. I'm a little surprised to hear that.
I am as well, but they're growing. They're developing.
Tim. Interesting. All these crazy beer trends. We are listening to the Beer Guys Radio Show. We do need to take a break, but we'll be back very soon to talk more with North by Northwest Brewing.
Have you ever thought about owning your own brewery but don't know what it takes to get one built? We're Storytime Construction, and we build breweries. We're Georgia's most experienced and hands-on contractors when it comes to building new breweries and tap rooms, or expanding existing breweries. We offer full build-outs, remodeling, and additions, as well as consulting and construction management. Give us a call at 770-733-4343. Storytime Construction. We build breweries.
Is your brewery or restaurant flooring all jacked up? Your foundation needs to be protected from heat, chemicals, and other contaminants. At the same time, you want to make sure it's slip resistant and you can clean up your messes with soap and water. You know who to call?
ResTech.
We've been manufacturing poured-in-place flooring since 2002, and we've got solutions to fit any facility's needs. Go on and visit our website at
ResTech.net.
That's res-tek.net. Drop us a line and we will come to you for a free evaluation.
Oh, yeah. Follow the Beer Guys on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Next Friday is Hawaiian Shirt Day. So, if you want to, go ahead and wear a Hawaiian shirt and jeans.
Now, back to the Beer Guys radio show.
Welcome back to the Beer Guys radio show. If you miss an episode, don't worry. All episodes are available as a podcast. Subscribe on your favorite podcasting app and never miss a show. Now let's get back to our talk with North by Northwest Brewing Company.
David, we looked up your background, and you mentioned to us you recently took over the head brewer position there at North by Northwest. Is that correct?
I did, yeah. About a month ago, I finally made it to the head brewer position.
Made it. Good deal, man. What's your background prior to that?
Prior to that, I had started homebrewing when I was 22 years old. I went to college in San Diego, and I was very impressed with the IPAs that were being made out there at the time. Sculpin was $3.50 a pint while I was in college. Any bar I went to, it was great. I moved.
Man, what a deal.
Yeah, it was amazing. And an amazing IPA at the time. It was about 2012, around then. And I moved back to New York City, where I went to high school, and I had found that the East Coast IPAs were very malty, bitter. They weren't fruit forward. They were just, or dank in a way. They were just very malty and bitter and not pleasant. So I just went into a homebrew store one day, and I was like, how do I make a beer? Because I want to make an IPA. And
okay, that's what does it. Yeah,
that was how it started. And me and my buddy, we started just kind of homebrewing together. He was going to college in upstate New York, and I was living in New York City. So we'd get together, homebrew, make a cool IPA or two, and then we were just like, why don't we get a job in a brewery somewhere? Let's do this. And we went to this on this little beer tour. We just drove in his car from New York City up to Vermont, checked out a few breweries, cut across New York State, and ended up in Ellicottville, New York, where it was basically an alumni of the same college as my best friend. They kind of got together months before, but just kind of had this hey, just come down to my brewery, let's meet up. And so we actually went to the brewery. He was in the process of converting a 10-barrel brewpub, 10-barrel, really small system, I guess, into a production brewing facility. So it was in a little ski town, and we ended up being the first people to work on the bottling line there. So I was in charge of building packages, putting beer into packages, driving a forklift, and that was where it all started. And about 6-7 years later, I ended up head brewer down here in Austin, Texas, and it's been a crazy journey, but you just learn
not a
so
bad
much.
place.
Yeah.
Not a bad place to be and be a head brewer, right? Austin, Texas.
It's amazing. Yeah, man. Like it's a great beer scene down here. It is a lot more I want to say unique than a lot of other cities in America. But
Austin's another kind of keep Austin weird kind of town, isn't it?
It is.
It
Don't
really
they do
is.
that?
It really is. You gotta do some weird stuff, and that's kind of, since I took the reins at North by Northwest, it's kind of what I'm trying to do is just let me experiment in a few different ways. You know, there's so many thousands of different kinds of yeast out there in the world. You know, millions actually. Like, I mean, there's yeast growing on everything. You can easily make sours, funky things like that. You could do crazy IPAs, Norwegian farmhouse IPAs with a kveik beer or kveik yeast.
Kveik.
Yeah, well, yeah. Did we get into that yet with the kveik? Because
we're going to get into that for sure. That's definitely an interesting one. Yeah. So that's no, but on that note, it's kind of interesting. You talk about all the experimentation and such that you want to do, but what kind of got you into homebrewing was that quest for that classic West Coast IPA, right?
Dude, it was just insane. I worked in this bar called the Pony Bar, which is still up there on the upper or Midtown East Side in New York City.
I've been there.
You've been to the Pony Bar? Oh, great!
I have.
So, did you ever go to the Hell's Kitchen one on 10th Avenue and it was like 30?
That's exactly
or 45th Street. Yeah,
that's exactly the one I've been to. Yes,
oh, that was I went to that was where it started. That was where my love for craft beer started. Was at Pony Bar. I had gotten a job as a bar back in Times Square, and at this Asian fusion restaurant called Ruby Foods, and I would go to work, make about $85 in tips every night, and I would just find myself at the Pony Bar on my walk home, which was on 38th and 8th in Midtown. And I just would swing into the Pony Bar, and I'd end up closing this place down. It was a craft beer bar, 20 taps. That was it. One keg of every beer. So like once one keg kicked, brand new beer came on. They didn't have, double it up at all. It was just rotating, and it was $6 a pint. So it's like, yeah, I'm going to go there. Plus, I know the bartenders. They're going to hook it up. So that was just where I really honed in on, like, hey, I love craft beer, but why isn't there that Sculpin? Like, I used to go, or the Nelson, like Alpine Brewing Company out of San Diego. Why isn't the Nelson, like, why don't we have cool beers like this in New York? And I went into a homebrew store. This guy, it was called Bitters and Esters. I walk in, and I'm like, me and my buddy, we walk in. We're like, we want to brew beer. How do we do it? He just gives us that How to Brew by John Palmer, that homebrew book. And he says, there you go. Learn from there. And we were like, okay, cool. So we tried to read it. We started with, like, all malt extract brews, kind of like tweak some like recipes that they had from Bitters and Esters, and then we kind of like made our own, and it tasted really good, and we were just like, all right, we got to do this. Let's try to make a brewery or something. And we ended up
that first batch, man. It'll get you hooked, get you going.
Oh man, it got a lot of people, like a lot of my friends. So I'm in New York City at this time brewing this, and a couple of my friends were DJs, and they were doing kind of like these underground warehouse, dance, like house music dance parties in Brooklyn, like just some in the warehouse districts and all that. And they're like, hey, can you make beer for that? And we were like, I guess. So we kind of just did like some like little moonshine stuff. We made like a couple batches of this beer called Strong Brew, which the DJ group was called Strong Bros, but they we just kind of like made this beer for them, and then gave it away, and it was a cool party, you know. It was all good stuff. But I don't know. So we like went from there. Like we had been homebrewing. We made this awesome IPA that we felt really proud about, and then we drive up to the Alchemist Heady Topper up in Vermont, in Burlington, or not Burlington, Waterbury, Vermont. The Alchemist. That's the original, like, true New England.
The birth of the
IPA.
haze, man.
That is the haze,
birth
man.
of the haze.
That is the.
And
haze.
We talked to Kveik one time, and he joked about how that beer isn't really that hazy when you compare it to the hazies that we have.
Oh no!
But it birthed the whole nation there. We are listening to the Beer Guys Radio Show. We do need to take a break, but we'll be back very soon to talk more with North by Northwest Brewing.
As a brewery owner or taproom manager, are you looking for ways to enhance your customer experience while maximizing your revenues? Craft Cellar is a mobile solution that helps your brewery drive sales and attract new customers through online pre-sales for beer releases, events, and memberships. Get details now at craftcellar.com. Mention Beer Guys Radio after sign-up and extend your free trial to a full 30 days. Remember, craftcellar.com, craftcellr.com.
It's Brian and Tim, the Beer Guys. If you're like us, no lunch or dinner is complete without a pint or two of craft beer.
Which is why Truck and Tap in downtown Woodstock, Alpharetta, and Duluth are always on our list. Tim, why do they call it Truck and Tap?
Well, the tap part is easy, Brian. They've got 18 of them.
As for the truck part, that's where it gets interesting. Truck and Tap features your favorite Atlanta area food trucks, so you're getting a different menu every day.
Truck and Tap in downtown Woodstock, Alpharetta, and Duluth.
Truckandtap.com. Let them know that the Beer Guys sent you.
Follow the Beer Guys on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
He hates these cans! Stay away from the cans!
Now, back to the Beer Guys Radio Show.
Welcome back to the Beer Guys Radio Show. I want to give a quick shout out to one of our great radio affiliates, KFLS 1450 AM in Klamath Falls, Oregon. Catch Beer Guys Radio on KFLS every Saturday at 7 p.m. and Sunday at 1 p.m. Pacific. Now let's get back to our talk with North by Northwest Brewing.
David, we're going to talk about, the first thing we're going to discuss is the pronunciation of this word. It is spelled, like if you're pronouncing it in English, you would think it was kveik. It's Kveik. Now, David, I believe you said you pronounce it like queek, correct?
Yeah, so basically I threw it through the translation. So I believe it's queek.
Okay. Yeah, and I did some Googling, and I found something that suggested it was quike. Like with a V and a W kind of blended, like kveik.
There we go.
So we'll say if we get quike or queek, we're going to go with those. But anyhow,
I'm going to tell you, it just ferments so quick. That's why I call it that. Queek.
Ferments really quick, right?
Yeah.
But this is a hot topic here. You know, we've seen a few of these around us. A few of the breweries have done, various styles where they've used the quike yeast in there. And the quike is Norwegian for yeast. And, apparently this was kind of buried on the farmhouses there forever. But I did see that not only are you brewing one for the brewery, but you've got a keg of it at your house to quench your thirst, right?
Oh, yeah. I'm drinking on it right now.
See, good stuff, man. But, I found out that it seems like it's a pretty amazing yeast. It's totally different from like the Ales and lager yeast that are out there right now. Is that correct?
Oh, it is. It doesn't make any sense. It is the craziest yeast I've ever dealt with in my entire life. Just to put it like that.
Yeah, and you mentioned the fast fermentation, and we've heard reports of, I think I may have mentioned this in the first segment, but 30 minutes from dry yeast to show an active fermentation. It's heat tolerant, which is something that, actually, this could be cool for homebrewers. We talked about homebrewing a little bit, but one of the big challenges that homebrewers have is they don't have any temperature control. And a lot of these yeasts need to ferment cooler than what a household temperature is. But I read somewhere that whether you ferment this at like 65 degrees or 100 degrees, you get the same character out of it.
Here's what you got to do with it. This is the thing. It is insane. I will explain to you how it's the top of the line homebrewers yeast of all time. I used to struggle with what yeast I wanted to use, what temperature. I really, really struggled with that because I felt like a lot of my beers were over attenuated. They just weren't matching up to the style. This yeast, you use so little, it will attenuate it all the way down to make a perfectly dry IPA. It's amazing. But the coolest thing about it is any temperature. I cooled in to make this beer at 90 degrees. It fermented insane. Like it just was like probably one of the most vicious fermentations I've ever seen in my life. And it rose the temperature from 90 degrees to 103.
Wow. Jeez.
And then it cooled down. Yeah, and then it cooled down, and then it was back to 90. Like, this thing is a beast. Like, it is... I did a blend of the Omega Hornindal and the Hothead. I just took 2 homebrew packs. I blended it into it was about a 1-barrel starter. So 1 barrel's about 30 some odd, or like 32 gallons of beer or so, or wort. So 2 homebrew packs into 32 gallons. Took off in 30 minutes. I cooled in at 90 degrees. That thing just took off within, it was just instant. It was insane. It was nuts. And it finished fermenting in 42 hours. 42 hours. It was done.
That's something.
Done. No diacetyl, nothing. It passed all the tests. Like, yeah, I dry hopped it. I did a double dry hop version. Well, I mean, it is double dry hop. So basically what I did was, right when I knew it was taking off, I came in that morning. It was like 12 hours in, and I dry hopped it, fermented through, dry hopped it again. I transferred it over. It is just so, like, aromatic, dry, crushable, a little lemony and fruity. That's kind of what I'm getting off of.
Now I have a question for you. You mentioned double dry hopping, and I read something recently, and I forget where I saw it at, but someone was talking about double dry hopping, and the definition of that was actually a double dry hop involves a dry hop before fermentation is finished, and then after, just like a regular. That is by definition double dry hopping. But is that a term that? And I don't know. That was one opinion. Is that? Do you know, Brian? Is that the definition?
That's what I think I read the same thing where they were saying that in order to double, you're either going double by volume or you're doing two different hoppings. And I think usually what they were saying is it should be 2, one before primary fermentation is done and then another hopping afterwards. So.
Yeah. So what you're going to do, this is how I interpreted it, and this is my technique in any way. You just cut your total hopping in half. You know what I mean? Like, so... for a homebrew, I want to dry hop 1 ounce into 5 gallons, right? Well, do half an ounce couple days in, like 2 to 3 days in, while it's like actively fermenting, and then before you transfer it to your secondary fermenter, throw that other hop in, or into your secondary if you're speaking homebrew,
I gotcha.
So yeah, if I have a glass carboy, I would put my hops in and then rack the beer into it. You know what I mean?
Okay, understandable. Yeah. And talking on the kveik yeast again, another thing with that, I believe it's also highly alcohol tolerant, so you can get them big ABV beers in there. And Brian, you found a little bit of information. So there's 3 main styles. Is that right?
At the moment, yeah. As per I think the noted expert on this, the guy Lars blog, he knows more about it than anybody else. It's broken up by regions, and it's kind of a loose categorization. He says there's probably actually 4 styles at least, but he's not willing to really categorize the 4 styles.
Not ready to go there yet.
He's still defining it.
You know what I need from you, Brian, is I need correct pronunciations on all of these, because I see letters that don't exist in English.
Yeah, that's right. So I think all beer made from malt, everything fermented from malted grain in Norway is called maltol, or I don't know what that /o is called. So that means it's basically beer, and it's broken down into Stajor. I can't.
You're not going to get close, Brian.
Cornell and Vosal, I think, something like that. So they're very different styles, different regions, considerably different. And even within some of those regions, the styles vary wildly, and the actual brewing varies wildly. So
now, are these styles of the kveik yeast or beers brewed with them? Because it looks like they're describing the styles of beer.
These are styles of beer, but they all use that yeast.
I see.
Yeah,
okay,
Norwegian farmhouse-ish styles, basically.
All right. Now, what style did you say you did yours from the kveik there?
So I went for a just regular, like, I just wanted to do a blend. I wanted to see, hey, let's produce something interesting that I don't think anybody, I don't really know anybody who's blended, two of them together. So I just went to the homebrew store, like I said, saw what they had. They had Hothead, Omega Hothead, and then the Omega Hornindal, which I've heard the Hornindal is like more of like pineapple mango flavor. The Hothead was like clean fermenting. This whole like farmhouse IPA I was doing, I was gonna double dry hop it, so I put a lot of like pretty cool hops into it as well. So it's just like, I don't really know. It just fermented all the way down. It's like so dry. It like almost tastes like a brute IPA in a way. It finished at like 1.7 or so degrees Plato. So it's pretty dry, and the dry hopping was just extreme. So very, very fruity. But
so a dry hop Norwegian IPA, I think.
Sounds crazy.
Yeah.
Double
I drink
dry
it.
hop. Double dry hop. So
Okay.
Double dry hop.
yeah.
IPA.
Like
Sounds
I came in right when it was ripping, and I threw some hops in. So that's what it needs to do when it's actively fermenting. Get those hops in.
Good stuff. I drink it. You're listening to the Beer Guys Radio Show. We do need to take a break, but we'll be back soon to talk more with North by Northwest Brewing.
We are Reformation Brewery, celebrating the reformer in you. Locally crafted within the renowned Etowah watershed of Woodstock, Georgia, Reformation creates yeast-forward brews full of aroma and flavor crafted to last. Come see us in beautiful Woodstock, Georgia, for a tour and tasting of unique brews that you can't find anywhere else. Reformation Brewery. Set beer free. ReformationBrewery.com.
Craft beer forged with a reverence for tradition and new styles that start a revolution. Ironmonger Brewing. The brewers at Ironmonger Brewing pride themselves at being masters of barrel-aged, hoppy, and sour beers. They invite you to their tap room in Marietta, Georgia to taste and see. Also visit their barrel room for an intimate drinking experience with great live entertainment. Keep up to date on all things Ironmonger by liking them on Facebook. Ironmonger Brewing, establishing a new standard in craft beer.
Follow the Beer Guys on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Back off, man. I'm a scientist.
Now, back to the Beer Guys Radio Show.
Welcome back to the Beer Guys Radio Show. If you enjoy the show, please consider supporting us on Patreon. Just go to patreon.com/beerguys. Patrons can get some cool perks like Beer Guys swag, commercial-free episodes, and even bonus episodes that aren't available anywhere else. I'm talking about a new From the Cellar episode where we open up a vintage bottle of New Holland's Night Tripper. I think it was from 2013.
It was a 2013.
Yeah.
Yep.
But now let's get back to our talk with North by Northwest Brewing.
David, we have gave our homebrew adventures here. We've talked kveik yeast and all the amazing things that it can do. I think, you know what? I think I could talk more about kveik, but I think I want to do a little more research before I dive into that much more. So I know what the heck I'm talking about there. But we do want to talk about the brewery, specifically some, David, with North by Northwest. You have just recently or will soon celebrate your 20th anniversary. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes. So 20th anniversary, I feel like it's a pretty big deal. So
sure.
Gotta figure out what we're going to do. I have, what's really cool about North by Northwest is we've actually, in past years, won gold medals at the World Beer Cup or Beer Championship, GABF, for our sour beers. And I have quite a few fruited lambics and other sours in a barrel room right now, so I'm going to bust out a couple of those and also do a variation on one of these Norwegian beers. So it'll be a Norwegian farmhouse beer with prickly pear, which the previous head brewer had harvested an entire crop of prickly pear. They found like a whole field of it, and they just like grabbed a bunch of them and froze them. So I have a whole freezer full of fresh Texas prickly pears. So
foraged fruits, Brian.
Foraged fruits.
We were just talking about those last week.
And the coincidences abound because we just had a prickly pear double IPA. So you're going to do a Norwegian farmhouse with prickly pear. That's going to be interesting. I expect that to be like a bright pink in color or something like that.
What I'm drinking on, if it's close to this Norwegian IPA that I'm drinking right now, it should be dry, extremely dry. It's like a saison almost, but has no like real phenols, esters like that. Just super clean. So I feel like this prickly pear just add like a nice like, dimension to that style. So like mosaic hops, prickly pears, that kveik yeast, let it do its thing, whatever.
So super dry and very bright pink. I'm thinking you're making a rosé beer, basically, right?
I might be, yeah. I know that. Yeah, it's that would be an interesting rosé, that's for sure. But it is dry. I think it would hit on all those levels, but as a 6%, maybe 7% IPA, and then. We also have a Irish stout that has been aging on these tart cherries in a barrel for, I want to say 6 months now. So I will probably pull that out. It's called Iron Mermaiden. And
Iron Mermaiden. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I wasn't sure there, David. I'm glad you reset that one for us.
I had to, I got a tongue twister right there. But Iron Mermaiden, it is actually fantastic. We released one of the barrels last year at the Texas Craft Brewers Fest, and we had a line to the end of the festival pretty much until it kicked. And this beer is so good. I'm gonna have this prickly pear Norwegian farmhouse IPA and Iron Mermaiden, like this awesome barrel-aged sour. Should be really, really really good. So,
I think you should blend the two. Introduce the Mermaiden to the prickly pears.
I am all about blending. That is one of my passions. Blend the beer. Why not? Like, it just tastes so good if you can blend it. All about it.
Yeah, we've done some experimentations with that, just blending beers that were like, these two would taste good together.
Oh, I blend IPAs all the time. Like, I have 6 IPAs on tap right now. And I'm like, what might taste good together? I'll blend 2 of them. Or if I want, I'll throw like some stout with a hoppy beer, and you have like a nice black IPA. You can just make your own. It's all bartender's choice, pretty much.
Have you ever done the suicide beer where you just go down all the taps?
Oh yeah.
Oh, I have, and I actually I enjoy it. As long as there's not too many sour things. It's fine, but it's I used to clean tap lines, and that was a thing. I would always call it quality control. You had to like taste every single one once tap lines are clean, right? Like, I'm not gonna make sure the bartender's sending out something with chemicals in it or anything. So I have to taste everything. So I would just go down the line, taste everything. And one time I did do that. I just like took a little glass, did every single one. It's not bad.
That sounds like QC sounds like a solid excuse.
I think
it's drink from every tap. Yes.
No, I think the most important job in a brewery is quality control. And
I have to agree with that. Got to make sure the product is good, right?
Yeah, if my beer comes out purple or gray, I'm gonna be very sad about that. I'm gonna be offended. I will tell everybody to just pull that beer off instead of serving it. Maybe it tastes good, but if a hazy IPA is purple or gray, you pull that off.
That's not the intention. Unless you got some fruit in there. Maybe some blueberries would bring it
to
a
lavender IPA.
Purple tones there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, talking of crazy beers, you have got one called Zombie Dragon. Did the Game of Thrones series drive sales of that beer? Because that was around before Game of Thrones. Is that right?
It was kind of insane. Yeah, it was like actually when the dragon became a zombie. I didn't watch the show. The previous brewer and his best buddy were watching this show, and they kind of came up with the name like that night, like once the dragon became a zombie or something, and boom, that was like the name. And yeah, it's just like picked up. Like, I mean, seriously, every Sunday, I think that was when Game of Thrones was going on.
Right. Yep.
I would have at least like 30 check-ins on tap, like for that night, like Game of Thrones, watching Game of Thrones. Yeah, and I have like 3 or 4 fruited versions of it right now. So my main distribution is just Zombie Dragon, Guava Zombie, Pineapple Zombie, Mango Zombie. I just have these like a lot of variations of it.
It's like the Bubba Gump Shrimp Company of beer.
Really is. It really is. It's like that name, the hype from Game of Thrones. I really think it just pushed it to another level. But
did it slow down a bit when the show came to an end? So there's no longer a zombie dragon to
it
check
does not
watch.
No. Everybody's chasing the dragon. They're all
gotta chase the dragon, man.
That's what they do.
Well, David, we're getting close to the end of the show here, but we want to know what is next for North by Northwest.
Oh, what's next? I mean, man, I got a couple cool ideas. I have this double imperial stout idea. It's going to be some crazy stuff. I'm going to use basically the mash from one beer, like the wort, as my next mash water on top of another beer, and do a double single batch. Like, this imperial stout is going to be insane. I'm going to throw it in barrels. It's probably going to be like 12% at least. Should
double single style sounds like a In-N-Out burger.
I was thinking animal style for that.
Animal style.
That's what I am. I'm from California, and I always miss my doubles. But we have a beer called Black and Blackjack, and so the Black is our 6% black ale. It's just a nice, easy drinking dark beer. The Blackjack is the barrel aged version of it. I have 4 freshly dumped bourbon barrels ready to be filled. And I was like, wait, I just read about this technique, this actual brewing technique, where you take the mash that you just ran off, like your first wort, you get it up to a level that's your next mash volume, and then you just send that over the top of your next brew. Like, you rake out, clean it all out, and then you just mash with the actual sugars. So it's like a double batch in one, and it should be insane. So I'm going to barrel age a lot of that.
Sounds crazy to me. Well, yeah. David, thank you so much for joining us for the show. We really do appreciate it. That about wraps it up for this episode of Beer Guys Radio. Coming up next week, we'll be talking with Line Creek Brewing Company. For more craft beer info, follow us online. We are Beer Guys Radio on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thanks again for tuning in. Have a great week, and don't forget to drink local. Cheers.
The Beer Guys Radio Show on the Beer Guys Radio Network. BeerGuysRadio.com.